All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the recap. I'm Michael D'Angelo. Now, normally I'm joined by my partner in crime, Mr. Big D, Daryl Ortiz. Unfortunately, Big D's under the weather today, not feeling well. So, Big D, we wish you the best. Looking forward to seeing you again next week. I'm sure you'll be back on your feet in no time. Just in time, probably to talk about the Netflix debut of Monday Night Raw, which is going to be happening coming up in a day or so. So until then, you've just got me this week to walk you through Raw and SmackDown. I'm going to keep it brief because I know I can be a little bit much on my own. Before we get started, though, I wanted to do a quick shout out for those of you who maybe were aware or were not aware. Last night was Wrestle Dynasty, which is the pay-per-view from the Tokyo Dome in Japan. Wanted to give a shout out to one of our own for Lucha Frontera. For those of you who may or may not know, Big D and I are the commentary team for Lucha Frontera here in El Paso, Texas. And we worked with Black Widow for a number of years, over the past 7 years, called a number of her matches. She's now known as Persephone, and she did compete last night in the International Women's Final against Momo Watanabe, who ended up winning, Willow Nightingale, and then Athena as well, also known as Ember Moon, to open the show. She was part of that fatal four-way matchup. So it was great to see Persephone representing for El Paso. She wore her Black Widow mask for her entrance, which I gotta tell you was awesome for me to be able to see her wearing that mask again. She took it off about halfway through the match, but we're really proud of her here in El Paso, Texas, and with Lucha Frontera. It was evident from the matches that I called for her years and years over the past several years. Most recently, last year, she came back for a Fort Bliss show as Persephone, but calling her matches as Black Widow over the past 7 years, it was really evident that she's a special, special talent. And so we're super stoked, super excited. So congratulations on your Tokyo Dome debut, Persephone. Very well deserved. And thinking back to working matches and calling matches for you in front of 10 people to now you competing last night in front of over 16,000 people at the Tokyo Dome. It's a great point of pride for all of us here in El Paso. We're so proud of you. Congratulations, Persephone. Moving on, though, we'll talk about Raw and SmackDown this week. Again, I'm going to keep it kind of brief. This was the final Raw of the USA Network run. Obviously, SmackDown is going to continue on USA Network. First 30 minutes were commercial free. Kicked off with the New Day starting the show. They cut off their own entrance, and this whole thing went on a little too long with them trying to fight off the booing. They were kind of almost trying to do the Dominic Mysterio. Can't get a word in because the crowd is booing them so much, but they weren't booing them that much. They were really having to kind of work and milk it. And then Jey Uso came down. So we got a long entrance because this is commercial free. I didn't think this is a great use of the commercial free time. We got 8 minutes of them talking and then 8 minutes of Jey Uso making a very long entrance. Basically just told them that they sucked. And then Jay started ranting about Solo Sikoa and Drew McIntyre. And then Solo popped up on the Titantron. Drew McIntyre ambushed Jay during his promo. And then Drew laid out Jay and then left. So that was like the first 15 minutes of the show. It was just a lot of talking. And then that moved into Chad Gable versus Otis. So this was one that has been built for months and months and months and months. We finally got it. There wasn't a lot of fanfare. The match was fine. It just wasn't what I was hoping for after we waited for so long for this blow-up match between them. I did love the fact that there's no commercial interruptions with this one. It happened during the first 30 minutes, so that was great. Good spots. There was the deadlift German suplex from Chad Gable onto Otis, which is very impressive. He's done that to Braun Strowman. He's done that to a lot of big guys, so they always act surprised when it happens. But, Chad Gable, he's a hoss. He's a strong guy. Pound for pound Olympian. So it was a good match. There was a little distraction. Chad Gable was able to lock in an ankle lock when the distraction came in from Ivy Nile. Otis tapped out. Match was over. Again, a little anticlimactic after they've been building it for so long and the way that they handled it. Obviously, I'm sure this rivalry is not over. It's going to continue. After this, we got a video package for Liv versus Rhea, which is coming up on Monday night on Netflix. And then we had what was supposed to be a match between R-Truth and Pete Dunne. And it was just Pete Dunne ran down and attacked R-Truth on his way down. And the match never happened. It was just like, it didn't happen. He attacked him, and then we just stopped, and that was it. So no match there. That kind of sucked. And then after that, we had Zoe Stark versus Dakota Kai in the semifinals of the Women's Intercontinental Title Tournament. That match was solid. Dakota Kai did surprisingly advance here. I was thinking it was going to be Zoe Stark originally kind of advancing for PFC. So you have the heel in the finals. That didn't happen. Dakota Kai did advance after hitting the Pele kick on Zoe. And yeah, so Dakota Kai's in the finals. We had the second semifinal that was going to come up a little bit later between Lyra Valkyria and Io Sky. After that match, we got the Raw and USA kind of highlight reel of the, this is your life career retrospective. Thanks for everything, USA Network on Monday Night Raw. And I gotta tell you, as a longtime fan, huge Attitude Era fan, the highlight reel really kind of showed me how superior the Attitude Era was to everything that's happening now. Unpopular opinion, I'm sure, but I'm gonna say it. Like, when you see all the flashback moments with Stone Cold and The Rock and Kurt Angle, The Undertaker, you had Eddie Guerrero sighting on there as well. We love Eddie Guerrero here in El Paso. Obviously Bray Wyatt, not from the Attitude Era, but those were two nice callbacks from folks that we have lost. Man, it was just kind of looking back on it, I'm like, the Attitude Era was so much better. And you still have people like Drew McIntyre, who I think he said it on SmackDown, like, this era now is the best era that there's ever been, with the most talent and the best locker room. I'm like, not compared to the Attitude Era. I am sorry. You're not going to convince me that the roster right now is better than Triple H, Stone Cold, Kane, Undertaker, Kurt Angle. I mean, come on, the Attitude Era was pretty special, and that just made me kind of miss it a little bit more. We got a teaser for John Cena's farewell tour. Speaking of farewells and better times, and that's going to be starting on Netflix. So a lot of, again, continuations for the Netflix show, the teasing for what's coming up this week. Which should be a big show. It's basically being treated as a little mini PLE. After this, we had Judgment Day in 6-man tag match with Finn, JD, and Dominic taking on Damian Priest and the War Raiders now, who were all buddies apparently. This was a good match. Lots of good spots, but I wish it had happened during the commercial-free portion of the show, because we were getting commercial interruptions. I would much rather have seen this kind of open up the show versus all the back and forth that we have with the New Day and then Jey Uso and the kind of the talking segments. This would have been a great one to feature with no commercial interruption, but it was really good. Damian Priest ended up picking up the win. He kind of hit the South of Heaven on Dom. It was a little bit awkward when it happened, but he picked up the win. And then right after that, you had Finn Balor attacking Damian Priest after the match, targeting his knee. So that rivalry continues, though I'm sure they'll have another blow-off match is going to be building towards Damian Priest versus Finn Balor again, but that continues. But Damian Priest and the War Raiders did pick up the win here. After this one, we had Kaiser in the ring, and then Sheamus came down and they briefly skirmished. That was that. And then we got to the next match, which was Io Sky versus Lyra Valkyria. This one I was really pulling for Io Sky because Io is great. She didn't advance, which is a little disappointing for me. Lyra Valkyria is great. I love everything that Io does. She's super talented. It'd be nice to have her have a singles title again. But we're getting a unique final here in the Intercontinental Championship. For the Women's Intercontinental Championship tournament is going to be Dakota Sky versus Lyra Valkyria. Should be a really good match. You're going to have somebody getting a title who hasn't really been crowned on the main roster. So that this will be a good thing. And it's very similar to what they did for the Women's U.S. Championship, with the finals ended up being Chelsea Green versus Meechin. So kind of following a similar methodology of, let's mix it up a little bit. Let's not have a lot of former women's champions that are going to be a part of it. Io obviously would have been a former women's champion if she had advanced. So that kind of kept with what we saw being the methodology that was used with the previous tournament for the U.S. Championship. So following that, should be a good final. Dakota Sky versus Lyra Valkyria. Go on record. I think it's going to be Lyra Valkyria who's going to take this one home, but we'll see. And then we had our main event of the evening, we'll call it that, which was CM Punk and Seth Rollins facing off in the final segment to hype up their match next week, as if there needed to be any more hype train happening. Got to get everything ready to go for the Netflix kickoff. Seth Rollins started it off, called CM Punk the self-proclaimed best in the world versus the real best in the world, which was him. And then CM Punk came out. A lot of really good back and forth. I'm not going to get into a ton of details here. I'm sure folks have seen it. This was just setting the table for these two hate each other. It did feel pretty personal, where, Seth accused CM Punk of taking his ball and going home with that usual shtick. And then CM Punk says, hey, did Stone Cold take his ball and go home? Did your wife take her ball and go home? Which Seth's response to that was, hey, my wife took a break to raise a kid. You wouldn't know anything about that, which is a little dig at CM Punk, obviously not having kids with AJ, and then he has his dog. So things got pretty personal here. You could tell it was still pretty scripted. They were playing off of each other, but I don't think it was all improvised. I think all of this was planned, but it all came from a pretty real place. Seth Rollins talked about CM Punk leaving and then trying to destroy WWE. talks about how much he loves the fans and this and that, but tried to destroy the company, and that didn't work. And then he took a big chunk of change to go to AEW, the competition. And hey, how did that work out? And taking the digs there. They were both really excellent. And Seth, I think at the end, called CM Punk a pioneer who became a cancer, and that he promised to burn him to the ground next week. So really great stuff. Don't know that it was necessarily necessary, but it should be a fantastic matchup. Should be really good. Not sure if it's the main event. I think it is the main event on Monday night, which is going to be interesting, especially since we have the tribal combat match as well. It's not going to be the main event involving Roman Reigns, but should be really good. Great job setting the table. And that's how we closed out Monday Night Raw. I'm going to give it Okay, I'll give it a B. It was very promo heavy. The wrestling wasn't all that great, but they did what they needed to do in terms of setting things up for the, I'll call it the Netflix PLE, which is the kickoff on Netflix coming up on Monday. SmackDown, first 3 hours SmackDown, which I think is interesting that we got 1 extra hour, but only one more match. We only had 5 matches, and normally SmackDown would have 4. So a whole extra hour of programming, only one more match to show for it. WWE, we need more wrestling. Like, I think I would have appreciated more if we just had shorter matches. There were a couple of very long matches that had multiple commercial interruptions. Give me like a 7-minute match with no interruption that's really clean, to the point. Everyone gets their business and looks good. That's what I'd really like to see, versus, hey, this match is going to go on for 25 minutes, but we're going to have 2 long commercial breaks in the middle of it. So opened the show was a 4-minute video package followed by Cody Rhodes kicking off the show, and he came down and wanted to talk about Kevin Owens and that his excitement was tempered because he's not cleared to wrestle. And he started talking about the ladder match of the Royal Rumble, and we got interruption from Drew McIntyre, who apparently is everywhere now, and there's no brand split that applies to him anymore. Maybe he's in the transfer portal, maybe he isn't, but he was here, so he's everywhere apparently. And then Drew walked out and he surprisingly gave a hug to Cody. A little bit odd. And then he said he wasn't there to hurt Cody, that he's not on his list, which is odd because I thought his list was comprised of everybody who was helping Roman Reigns. And Cody really did help out Roman Reigns quite a bit when he tagged with him. So I'm not sure how he hasn't made Drew's list, but apparently he's not on the list. And he was there to help. He gave Cody a lot of credit, but said he was about to screw up. And that basically he offered to have Cody's back, and Cody said he didn't believe Drew. Drew just said, watch your back, literally, which was kind of the heads up because Kevin Owens was jumping in from behind like a few seconds after that. So he should have listened to Drew. So then they had a little bit of a brawl in the ring and a brouhaha. Security came running down. For my second shout out of the show, security came running down, including our buddy Gino Rivera, who is everywhere. We love Gino. He's competed for the Triple many times. He was one of the security guards again. He is so often featured on WWE programming as a security guard. I think people are going to start thinking he really does work for security. But we love you, Gino. I always love seeing you when you make it on WWE programming. So keep working hard. The hardest working man in wrestling is Gino Rivera. So there was a big dust up brawl. After that, we got the first match of the night, which was Andrade versus Shinsuke Nakamura with no title on the line, which the thought was if Andrade wins, like, it should line him up and position him for a shot at the U.S. Championship. Michael Cole did a good job of kind of building up, referencing their previous rivalry in New Japan. And you can see, obviously, they've worked together quite a bit over their careers. Great chemistry. They get an immediate picture-in-picture break. Again, I was really hoping with the move to 3 hours, we would get fewer breaks during the matches, maybe longer commercial breaks prior to that. No such luck. But this match was really good. It's nice to see Shinsuke in action again after he kind of disappeared with the U.S. title when he beat LA Knight. Lots of good spots. You had the double moonsault from Andrade, which he now does with so much frequency. When he first did it, it was very exciting, and now it's kind of to be expected. Shinsuke did get the win. He hit the Kinshasa after Andrade banged his head on the top of the ring post and ended up picking up a clean win. And then afterwards, we had LA Knight run down immediately. His music hit, attack Nakamura, hit the clothesline, rained down punches. Nakamura escaped the BFT and then retreated. And LA Knight basically grabbed the microphone and said that he's coming for Shinsuke Nakamura. He's fired up. He's energized. He's ready to go. And apparently this is already translating into a U.S. Championship rematch next Friday on SmackDown. That was the little announcement we got later on. So they're right back at it. That's all it took was him running down once to attack Shinsuke Nakamura, and LA Knight's getting back into it. I'm a little perplexed here. I love me LA Knight. I think he's great. I feel like they had him lose really cleanly, and they haven't really had him recover from it. He had essentially got beat down by the Bloodline a few weeks in a row, And now all of a sudden he just runs out and he's like, I'm gonna get Shinsuke. I'm gonna like now he's coming for him again after that little detour of getting beat down by the Bloodline. I feel like they're losing some momentum with him. Hopefully they'll reignite the rivalry with him and Shinsuke. This will get him back on track. We'll see some good stuff here, hopefully. After this, we got the Pretty Deadly and Apollo Crew Snitches Get Stitches segment. It's the whole, hey, you lied about who jumped, what was it? Lied about DII. Not jumping the Street Profits. Legado del Fantasma confronted Pretty Deadly. There was brawling. Nick broke it up back from break. It was more Pretty Deadly and DIY hanging out, and DIY saying, hey, we've got our match tonight against the Motor City Machine Guns. It's very important we leave Phoenix, wink, wink, as the champs, which was obvious that Pretty Deadly was going to come down and interfere, which of course they did, but we'll get to that in a minute. But first we had Michin versus Piper Niven, which was fine. Michin did hit 3 Hurricane Ranas in a row on Piper, which is kind of cool. Then we got a 4-minute commercial break. And then we came back to Micha twerking with the long back attack. That was a little much for me. I love seeing twerking like anybody else, but that's just felt a little forced. And then Micha was in the driver's seat for most of this matchup. Seemed somewhat dominant. She had to eat the feet on Piper and won pretty cleanly. Which I'll say is a little sad because I feel like Piper Niven is really built up as being this force and this enforcer for Chelsea Green and this kind of larger than life, unstoppable kind of heel. At some point, she was built like that. And then see Michin kind of ragdoll her around was a little much for me. But Michin wins. Obviously, this will be the continuation of the rivalry between her and Chelsea Green. They do the whole you gotta fight my minions before you fight the final boss thing. So that's essentially what was happening here with Piper Niven. Then we had a Paul Heyman sighting right after this. He walked in and avoided the metal detector. Which was a little funny. I was like, is Paul Heyman carrying a gun? Like, what's going on here? So he intentionally avoids the metal detector, and they didn't really pay that off afterwards. I was hoping he was gonna whip out a gun or do something. And Paul Heyman was gonna basically walk down to the ring. We came back from break, and Heyman cut a promo that was pretty good. It was all right. I mean, it's not the best Paul Heyman promo that I've seen, but he said he was going to set the record straight and that Roman and Paul trained Solo to be the successor, to be the next tribal chief when Roman stepped down. But of course, Solo stole the Ulafala and then got rid of all of us because no sane person would acknowledge him, and then brought in insane people. He actually said brought in and recruited filthy animals to help him, and he got those men to help him because no one was ever going to acknowledge him. Speaking of obviously Tamataga Tagaloa and Jacob Fatu, and then he promised that Roman would win on Monday night. And Solo then came down and met Paul Heyman in the ring, and it was just Solo and Heyman. And then Heyman said, he was 10 seconds from peeing his pants because last time they saw each other, basically he went through a table at Solo's beckoning. So I'll say long story short, essentially what they agreed to here, Solo asked Paul Heyman to hold the Ulafala on Monday night during the match because he was trustworthy, and then said that, hey, when it's done, if Roman wins, he'll acknowledge Roman. But if Solo wins, Solo gets the Wise Man forever. So he wins Paul Heyman forever. He gets the Wise Man forever, and then everyone has to acknowledge him as the tribal chief. And then Paul agreed to this. So I will say this feels like it is the heel turn for Paul Heyman. The promo was passionate, but he seems to not necessarily really be advocating for Roman. Roman always seems kind of secondary in everything that Paul's saying right now since he came back. So it feels like there's something there in terms of the animosity. And I do think since he's going to be holding the Ulafala ringside, I do think we're going to see the turn from Paul. And there will be something that he does to help Solo win, and Roman will lose Tribal Combat on Monday night. Maybe The Rock comes back because it's Netflix. Maybe The Rock makes an appearance. You never know. This will be interesting to see. But I'm going on record right now saying we're getting the Paul Heyman turn on Roman on Monday night, one way or another. Maybe it's something to do with CM Punk. What did he promise CM Punk? Because he said he made a promise to Punk and he owes him a favor. What's the favor? Is he gonna turn on Roman? Is that the favor that he owes him? We'll see where they build this to. But tune into Netflix to find out. After this, we had DIY versus Motor City Machine Guns for the tag titles. This was a really great match between two great teams. Ended pretty stupidly, and we could tell why. Pretty Deadly ran down to interfere, and then Los Garza chased them down for falsely accusing them of attacking the Street Profits. And then they all kind of ran into the ring and collided with the Motor City Machine Guns while they had DIY in like double submissions. And so the match was waved off because it was interference as a no contest. It was kind of a silly into a great match where they inadvertently crashed into them and doing the Benny Hill chase. So didn't like the ending. The match was great. Did not like the ending here. and the rivalry between Motor City Machine Guns and DIY continues, and they'll do a blow-off match, I'm sure. After this, this is a 3-hour SmackDown. It just kept going. It felt every 3 hours. We had Nia Jax and Candice LeRae backstage, getting ready for Nia versus Naomi because the title was on the line. No Tiffany was there. Tiffany was not available. Nia was like, where is she? Not out there to support. And so this essentially kind of built into the next segment, which was Naomi versus Nia Jax for the WWE Women's Championship. Good match, got better as it progressed. We did get 2 long non-picture-in-picture breaks, so it went on for a very long time. This is where I said it felt like they could have shortened the matches, had fewer breaks, but as the match progressed, it started out kind of slow, got really good towards the back half. But the match really wasn't the highlight. It was the setup for the long-awaited cash-in by Tiffany Stratton. So it finally happened. The setup was Naomi had Nia Jax in a submission. Candice LeRae did the distraction. Bianca, of course, came in and attacked Candice, and they fought outside. Naomi countered a Nia power slam attempt from the second rope, and they both ended up crashing to the ground and were down. And then we heard the "It's Tiffy time" music hit. Tiffany ran down. She brought her own ref. Then before she was going to cash in, she pushed the ref over the barricade and then hit Naomi with the briefcase and helped Nia win. And it was like, oh, it was all a ruse. She wasn't really here to cash in. She was here to help Nia, and she did help Nia win. And then she kind of directed traffic and was like, hey, get Bianca. So Nia went to attack Bianca, and then Tiffany attacked Nia from behind, hitting her with the briefcase. She grabbed Candice LeRae, threw her into the ring post. Bianca then hit Nia with the KOD. And at that point, Tiff grabbed Bianca, threw her out of the ring, threw her over the announce table, then did the cash in, handed in the briefcase, hit the prettiest moonsault as soon as they rang the bell. Tiffany got the cover, 1, 2, 3. The crowd was going absolutely bananas, was going absolutely nuts. So Tiffany Stratton is your WWE Women's Champion, finally getting that cash in to happen. I was one of those, I believe it when I see it. So I was like holding my breath the whole time, as they're going to actually let this happen. And they did. The crowd was just red hot for this. Absolutely wild, going nuts for her. Congratulations, Tiffany Stratton. This is very well deserved. This should have been the segment that closed the show. It was so cool and it was so good. And we finally got that payoff. But it wasn't the last match. The last match was the 6-man tag between Old Bloodline and New Bloodline, which I didn't really feel like we needed at this point. We've built to the tribal combat match. We've seen different iterations of these tag matches over and over and over, so I don't think this really added to it. So missed opportunity to not have the show close out with Tiffany Stratton walking off with the title. That would have been a much better close than, at least from my opinion, what we got. And then we saw a video package for Tribal Combat to kind of kill time. There was still like half an hour, more than half an hour left in the show. And so we just got video packages. We got long entrances from the New Bloodline and the Old Bloodline. And then this match, I think by the time they got through all the entrances and everything that was going on, there was like 20 minutes left, less than 20 minutes. And then we got commercial breaks. So it was what it was. I felt like it slowed down the momentum of all the excitement that we just had with the title change. And it was kind of a slow building match. It was a solid match. But again, I feel unnecessary. It ended with Drew McIntyre coming down again and kind of getting a distraction at the end. And then there was just a lot of tagging in, tagging out, people losing track of who the legal man was. And it ended with Jey Uso thinking that Jacob Fatu was the legal man, but he wasn't. Solo actually was the legal man. So Jey hit his splash. Solo got into the ring and kind of blindsided him with the Samoan spike and got the cover. And then he won. And that was it. New Bloodline stood tall over the Old Bloodline, and that's how we closed out the show, with them getting that momentum heading into Tribal Combat. No Roman Reigns sighting or anything. So again, this just felt unnecessary. Don't know that we needed to see Old Bloodline lose again to New Bloodline. Roman didn't pop in. Nothing like that happened. So it was okay. Again, it would have been nice if they had just kind of swapped places, had the women's title match go last, have Tiffany's walk off as the champion, be how they close things out versus just the New Bloodline point and standing tall. But that was Raw and SmackDown this week. I will give SmackDown I'll give it a B+ for the title change. I'll give it, I'm marking it down because we got a 3-hour show and we only got one more wrestling match. And then to lots of commercial interruptions during the matches that we had, a couple of long matches that could have been short and we could have added more actual wrestling to our wrestling shows. And that sets the table for Netflix. So Netflix debut is coming up on Monday. That's going to be back to a 3-hour show for Raw as well. Lots of big matches. We got the Tribal Combat match coming up. We've got CM Punk versus Seth Rollins that they built up almost to like a WrestleMania levels of hysteria. We've got Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley for the women's championship as well. So shaping up to be a big night for the Netflix debut. Here, Logan Paul's going to be there as well. You might have The Rock there. You never know. They said they're going to do things that they've never done before, and it's going to be a historic night. So what do you think is going to go down? Let us know in the comments as well. What surprises you think we'll see on the Netflix show? But that was it for Raw and SmackDown this week. Told you I'd keep it short and sweet. Kept it under 30 minutes today. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Leave us comments, all that good stuff. Think I'm right, wrong, or indifferent. I don't know. Just want to talk about wrestling, all that good stuff. Let me know. We appreciate your support as always. Thank you so much. And that's what we got this week. So until next time, I've been Michael D'Angelo. Me and Big D. We'll see you next week. Till then, have a great rest of your week. Have a wonderful day.